So I'd like to get this started. For folks that are trickling in or sitting in the audience right now, we will have, we have food first, so we eat. And second, we have cards in the back with pens. So if a question pops up in the middle of this, please feel free to write it, and it'll be brought up front. Raise your hand so we know that you're needing something. Do self-care. Restrooms are down the hall to the left. We have 3 races that we're going to be doing this evening. We're going to do about 40 minutes each for each position. We have state senate for position, for District 16. We have state representative for District 32, and then county commissioner position number 3. We'll start with the state senate race. We'll move to the county commission race, and then we'll wrap up with the state representative race. And I forgot to do, it's not particularly important, but it's probably good to know who's talking to you. My name's Lisa Phipps, and I've been a member of this chapter of the American Association of University Women since 2000. Suddenly I got old. And we have been doing these for over 20 years. What I don't know, because I forgot to ask, is if anybody from AAUW would like to give a quick spiel in a positive and not in a negative way, but so that you know who's talking to you this evening.
Good evening. I am really happy that you're all participating with us today. This is one of our very exciting things that we do every year as an organization. And we're happy to have you here in person and also online. I feel like our organization is very much about community and helping each other out. And if you are interested in getting some more information about the American Association of University Women, we have flyers in the back by the refreshments and also at the table. Or you can ask one of us around the room. If you're a part of AAUW, can you raise your hand?
And this is a great opportunity. So we are going to start with the state senate race. Each candidate, which we are missing 2, who did indicate that they were going to be here. So I'm just going to leave these up in case they're late. We'll start with the state senate race. Each person has 2.5 minutes to introduce themselves and to convey whatever message you think is important for folks to know. And then we will move into questions. You will have 1 minute for each question. If it's particularly complicated or multi-questioned, I may provide some additional time. I realize a minute feels very fast. At the same time, it also can feel really long. So we'll get through that, and then we'll have 1 minute to wrap up, and that's an opportunity to put your best foot forward and tell folks why you're the best candidate for this role. So I'll just kind of rotate back and forth so nobody is always first. But I will start with Mr. Mansfield or Miss Armitage, if you'd rather, have her kick us off this evening.
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Rachel Armitage. I am your former state senator, and it is just so good to be back in Tillamook tonight. It's so good to see all of you. I'm so happy to be here. So I live in St. Helens. That's in Columbia County. I really like to think of St. Helens as like my street and Columbia County is my neighborhood. But the North Coast Senate District 16 is really my home, I gotta tell you. So just a quick show of hands, a little audience participation. So how many of you grew up in Tillamook County? How many of you? A lot of you. Okay, lovely. How many of you came here later and knew like right away, like this is home, this is where I'm gonna live? Yep, immediately. How many of you fell in love like sometime along the way? I will not make those of you who are still deciding like out yourselves. Don't worry about it. But I just want to point out, there are folks from all walks of life in this room. We've got Republicans and Democrats and independents and probably like non-affiliated, maybe working party, the list goes on. But the thing that we all share, or that I hope we all share, is that we love the North Coast. And that is why I am running. You know, I talk to folks from all across the district, all across the political spectrum, and we're actually, we have more in common than we think we do. We're all tired. We're all tired. It's chaos out there. We turn on the news, we hate it, and we really want things to work again. And that's why I am running. There will probably be some, I guess, a lot of talking today. We are embarking on probably the longest job interview of, I don't know, you may have had a longer life. I don't know. It's the longest job interview of my life, and really hope that you evaluate us accordingly. You know, there's a really big difference between folks who have values and good ideas and folks who really want to get stuff done. So as this conversation starts, I hope that's where we can all start together, and look forward to continuing the conversation with all of you. Thanks.
Dr. Mansfield, excuse me.
All right. Unfortunately, I never had the opportunity to stay in one place more than 2 years at a time. My dad was in the Marines. So the only time I actually had 4 years at one location was after he retired. And that was in northwest corner of Ohio, Paulding County, Ohio. I joined the military. I was in the Air Force. I was in the Navy Reserve. My background is aerospace engineering. Okay. I worked at 50 plus years at naval warfare centers and DoD contractors. You know, so that's what I did. Long time. So what I like to say is that with my 50 plus years of government and aerospace DoD contract support, I have a different credible edge. I'm running on substance, not politics. I've dealt with senators, states, you know, government, you know, federal senators, congressmen, 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, mass number of colonels, you know, throughout my entire career. I lived in the Mojave Desert for 17 years. You guys think it's warm here during the day? My hottest temperature there was 126 degrees on flight line. Okay, but it's only 15% humidity too. So, but anyway, I'm running for the people. That's what I'm running for. It's time to bring the government back to the people. That you have control again of what's going on in your lives and what you're being told you have to do and can't do. That's what I'm running for, to bring hope back to the people. That's it. That's why I'm running. Okay, I have lots of things I want to do, but you know, but that's it. Okay, if we want to do that, then I have a pledge to work on is abuse of power, education, educational choice, safety, the homeless issue, you know, something to do with the tax to rein those in, agency oversight, which is costing a tremendous amount of money to the people, and fiscal responsibility and transparency of everything that goes on in Salem. But anyway, that's running for you, as I said. I don't need the career. I've already had 3. I don't need another one. I'm doing it because someone has to go in to make a difference. Okay. And Ed Deal was at the other meeting, another meet and greet the other day, and he says, politics is not rocket science. That's what's on my card. And he said, he points to me because he's a mechanical engineer and I don't think that's basic. So anyway, thank you for letting me be here. Everybody's here too. Okay.
Great. Thank
That's
you.
it. Can you go now?
No, we're just getting started, the fun stuff. I was remiss in not making you aware of a couple of absences that I was aware of. Trip Dietrich had every intention of being here this evening. He's running on the Republican ticket. He is not able to be here. He had a family emergency and he was very stressed out about missing this. And I said, family comes first. And so that's where he is this evening. And then Commissioner Courtney Bangs is in Washington, D.C., fulfilling duties associated with her county commissioner position. And Zeke, is there a Zeke here? Okay, someone was going to read a statement for her, but that's okay. She is unable to be here today as well, and she was going to call in if we were on a different day this week, but she's actually on her flight. So they both have excused absences for today. So we're going to move right into the questions. What you'll notice is that folks really are asking many of the same questions for each of the Zeke online. Is that what you're pointing out?
No.
Oh, okay.
According to Will Chapel, because he asked me to fill out a form. Okay, so.
Don't confuse me, it's hard enough. Okay. You'll notice that the questions are going to be very similar for both state races, and that stands to reason. That's also why we broke them up, so you could have a little bit of ear space between the two. So I'm just going to start out in no particular order. I received a number of questions online in advance, and then we received a few this evening. Feel free to continue to write, especially if a question pops up based on something that's being said. But I try to start out with something. It's going to make everybody flip out and run. Okay. Okay, not easy, but also not controversial. This is just your opinion. Dr. Mansfield, we'll start with you. What do you believe are the most important issues for voters? And remember, you have 1 minute, and Pat's going to be keeping everybody on task. So, what do you believe are the most important issues for voters?
My belief is, one is the abuse of power by the governor. We need to eliminate significantly modified emergency clause in the Constitution. She's used it so many times to take her will out of people. The other one is taxes. We need to rein in the taxes and make sure the money is being spent like it was intended to be and what it was taxed for. Okay, and then the agency oversight is the other one, which just costs us so much money. DEQ, ODOT, and Fish and Game. Okay, those one.
Okay.
Okay. Well, like I said, I've spent a lot of time in all corners of the district talking to folks over the last 4 years. I spent some time working with the Oregon Community Foundation as the North Coast Program Officer, which gave me additional opportunities to hear from organizations kind of on the ground doing work here. And then, I just am out in my community talking to regular. I'm definitely not the person that's talking to the person who's changing their oil about how taxes work. That's not me. But in those conversations, I'm kidding, it totally is. I'm not very fun at parties. What I have learned from folks just sharing about their day-to-day lives is that, I think people are really down and out looking for jobs, looking for economic opportunity. I think the North Coast in particular, we talk about things working again, making sure the North Coast is seen. And I think healthcare and housing are huge. So we will talk about that more, I hope.
Great. Let's see. In no particular order. What changes would you make to make the initiative process more visible and easier to use for all voters? And Rachel, could you please correct me on how I'm saying your last name?
Yeah, so it's Oregon and it's Armitage.
Armitage.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Say it.
Armitage.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll repeat the question because I already forgot what I asked. What changes would you make to make the initiative process more visible and easier to use for all voters?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a big fan of voters being able to weigh in on decisions that the legislature has made. So for example, is not to just jump into something controversial right away, but this transportation tax that we have on the ballot coming this May, that's something that happened in the legislature. And now voters have decided that they want to weigh in and gathered signatures and are now voting. And I totally support that. I really struggle when outside groups and entities write their own legislation and then put it on the ballot. I think that's what, a lot of this stuff really takes, 6 months of deliberating and going through the details. I think sometimes that process can lack nuance. So I'm actually not as big of a fan of that part of it. But as far as voters weighing in, I think we definitely need to, I support that.
Good, thank you. Dr. Mansfield?
Repeat the question.
Sure. What changes would you make to make the initiative process more visible and easier to use for all voters?
first of all, I wouldn't allow them to change the voting date, from one to another, when it specifically says November. That's what everybody signed. I know, helped 700 and some people sign that petition. So the other one is that it should be easy for people to be able to file a petition for whatever it is they are. But I agree with her. There is people who put things forth on it that should not be putting forth. It's like judges and other people that have nothing to do with it. Unions are putting stuff in there, and they should not be doing that. They're not elected. At least judges are posted, but most of them are appointed. So anyway, I want to make it, easy to do that. I think sometimes the required number of signatures are a little exorbitant, trying to limit what you can do, but anyway, that's the things I think need to be adjusted.
Thank you.
But I agree with you on that.
Dr. Mansfield, we'll start with you on this next question. Will you work with President Trump to restore dredging of the rivers?
Where I understand, the Army Corps of Engineers are trying to charge Oregon, right, to sit there and dredge the rivers. Is that correct? I believe $250 million or something like that. When I've heard, no, I would, yes, I would work with, I don't know if I would get to talk to the president, I would probably be able to talk to Vance, the vice president, and some of the senators, but the congressmen. But yeah, we need to keep the rivers clean. Right now, I'm surprised that you can get a ship through on some of these. When I look at it, if you go over to Megator Bridge, half of the entrance is sandbar. Okay, that's right there. So yeah, I would have no problem doing that. There's several things that I will pick up with the federal government that needs to be done.
Great. Mrs. Armitage. Again.
Just call me the first name.
You can absolutely call me Rachel. Let's do it. That is a great question. I think for me, if an idea is good for the North Coast, I'm going to work with anybody. I may not agree with President Trump on everything, but if that was a good idea, I would be gung ho. I think my first step would be to connect with local leaders, folks who really care about our rivers, folks who really care about creating jobs. And, that obviously is a question because at least one person in Tillamook County really, really cares about that issue. And my job would be to find out why and figure out what we could do. I would say the voices that matter in that conversation are local voices. Trump wants to do it, that's great, but the people who get to really decide are the folks who live right here.
Thank you very much. Well, we'll go to roads because that's an easy one. I can't believe I just said that. The question is pretty straightforward as it was posed, which is how would you fix Oregon Highway 6? But I'm going to just do some extrapolation here. I'm going to make it a little broader. Our state highways need some attention, and how are you going to work in your role as senator to make those fixes happen? And we will start with Rachel.
Yeah. So back in 2022, I actually worked across the aisle with then State Representative Suzanne Weber to pass a bill that would study all the fixes that need to happen on Highway 6. That study happened. So we have it. And actually, one of the first things that I would like to do is connect with ODOT about how much progress we've made. I think we are still doing this when we drive on that particular highway, and we need to get that fixed. I mean, that's something that's so central not only to us as taxpayers, making sure that we are able to get places safely, but it's also important for our economy, and it's important for natural disasters. So that actually, I'm so glad you brought that up, because Highway 6 is priority number one for me.
Thank you. Dr. Mansfield.
I've been wanting to do it on 6 one time. I thought it was kind of strange. I never drove with it yet, but I thought it'd be interesting. Don't want to do it again. 26 is bad enough, and so is 30. Right now, I've looked at the budget ODOT, where it gets its money from and where it gets distributed to. Right now, ODOT has a $4 billion loan that they are paying on from the money that they collect. And they only get to keep a certain very small percentage of the money that's actually collected, and it goes to other different things. And I think that needs to change. But we need to make sure that the work they're doing and the contracts that are doing it are actually legitimate type contracts, that the budget is an actual real budget, not just an arbitrary number thrown out of the air. The 6th route, and part of it that I know about, should be moved to the other side of the river. You're never going to stabilize that road the way it is right now. It's a steep clevis. Unless you're going to sit there and put out beams into the ground and an engineering point of view, you are always going to fail. It's always going to fail, just like there is 6 points on 101 when I come here that are going to fail. So,
Thank you. All right. The next question is, could you please state your position on the proposed proposed ice facilities along the coast? And we'll start with you, Dr. Mansfield.
I didn't realize that they were putting ice facilities over here next to the river ice ocean.
Well, there was one being proposed in Newport, and there were conversations on this.
I understand they're no longer going to do that. They pulled it away. All they are is holding facilities before they get reported out, but I don't know where they're being built. I don't have any idea. I'd have to see what it is that they're doing and all that stuff. But, it's a federal law that they're breaking it, so they need to be taken care of, but politely. And I would actually say, okay. So anyway, I believe in legal immigration, if that's really the bottom line.
Okay.
Okay. So, but anyway,
Thank
that's
you.
all I have to say.
Ms. Armitage?
Yeah, so no, absolutely not. This is an economy that is still working to, build something new. And to find prosperity, that's something that I am it's my whole goal in seeking this office. And it's so many places where folks come to the coast to experience, joy and good vibes and a break and a vacation from it all. Ice facilities are not the way to go. They're not good for our economy. And to be honest, I don't like framing this conversation in terms of our economy. I am somebody who cares about this from a human perspective. I think, I grew up in the church. The Bible says, what good is it if we gain the world and lose our soul? And I think we let that happen, we're dangerously close to losing our soul. So I stand with our neighbors. No.
I just fair warning, the questions are all over the place, which is what your job will be like if you're elected. So sure. Please share your values and work to support educational access for all students, including transgender students, first-generation students, and students with disabilities, including higher education. I will start with you, Ms. Armitage.
And we have a minute for that.
We can do a minute and a half. That's kind of a good question.
Give me a second.
Yeah.
Okay. Whoa.
Okay.
I just want to be honest. I think we could spend this whole forum talking about that question, or I could. I think when it comes to student success, we do have to have a conversation about our budget and funding. And I know, teacher pay and retirement, all of those issues are so critical and so important. From a practice perspective, I think we really need to start in preschool. We talk a lot about access to childcare and what that means economically, but preschool is super important for development. And to be honest, when it comes to students with disabilities, whether it's learning disabilities or some sort of neurodivergence or physical disability, whatever it is, being able to support students in those early years is so critical. And I think we have, my understanding is we have a whole bunch of data and we just have not put it together and come up with any policies and answers. So, as a daughter of an educator, if anybody wants to stay after and just really hear me out on this, I think that there's a whole lot we need to be doing, especially early. I have talked to our teachers. I have a lot of relationships with preschool teachers. I did that for a while. I also worked in higher ed. So, you know, there's a lot we can do.
Thank you.
90 seconds, not enough.
Dr. Mansfield.
You're gonna have to read that.
I certainly will.
Okay.
Please share your values and work to support educational access for all students, including transgender students, first-generation students, and students with disabilities, including in higher education.
We mean disabilities in higher education?
No, the
Question.
question is around educational access
Okay,
up through higher ed.
all right. Colleges are expensive. I was lucky, but I was curious about this preschool stuff. I never went to preschool. My first was kindergarten. You know, that was mine. And that wasn't until I was almost 7 years old. Well, I don't think anything else. That may be why I'm so intelligent, I guess. I don't know. But I believe in educational choice. Every student learns differently. I learn differently than you do. I learn differently than you do. And I need a school that is specifically designed for those type of people that learn a particular way. I learn by visual and reading and writing. That's the way I learn. Other people have to learn by basically watching, just visually. And some to do it by doing. Some have to have hands-on experience. So I believe we need to have educational choice for our children. And college, I don't know how you're going to handle a college because colleges are expensive. Luckily, when I started, it was only $292 a semester, a quarter actually. And when I left, it was $512. And when I first started, it was 30,000 students in Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio. When I left, there were 80,000 students in Ohio State. That's a lot. That's a huge jump. Okay, to people. But I think people have access to it, but I don't think it should be free because otherwise they don't have value owned in it. Freedom doesn't give you ownership of what you did. Now it should be reasonable, okay, but it shouldn't be free.
Okay, thank you.
That's all.
The next question is, Dr. Mansfield, what kinds of legislation could be passed to protect children from repeat child predators and human traffickers?
Lisa, are we back to 1 minute?
Yes.
Do we be gross or do we just actual?
Pardon?
Okay. I think child predators, after that, I don't believe something has to be done that doesn't want them to even come near to another child again. Right now, they get released, add them to the thing, they have their, what do you call it, what's that thing they put on that's, you want to go online and see where they're all at, predators, where they're all, type thing. But some child predator, the predators should be punished significantly. And I mean significantly for the crime which they commit. Okay, and they need to be able to also put forth damages towards the family and stuff that they should be responsible for also. Okay. I'm being kind as a father. I'm so done. Okay.
Understood.
Okay.
Is that the end?
That's it.
Oh,
I quit
thank you.
because I was say something else that I don't want to say.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Ms. Armitage, what kinds of legislation could be passed to protect children from repeat child predators and human trafficking?
I am going to go ahead and answer that by talking about an issue that's super close to home, which is, back in 2024, there were multiple educators at St. Helens High School were arrested for abusing students, and there were just so many things that went wrong. One of them was that teachers just were not doing their jobs when teachers were and administrators, to be honest, were mandatory reporters, didn't do their job. I think in instances like that, there needs to be some massive oversight from the state. I think we need to do a better job at educating people about what is not acceptable, what's not okay. And then when the adults in the room, fail, because that's what happens. That's when this goes wrong. We need to hold those adults accountable for not keeping children safe.
Thank you. As the current administration works to deregulate decades-old environmental protections, how will you ensure that our air, water, forests, and fish and wildlife will be protected from overdevelopment and bad practices? Secretary.
That's a great question. So in 2022, I carried the tax credit that was a part of the private forest accord, which was an agreement about how forest lands would be managed between larger timber companies, small woodlands owners, and environmental groups. And I think before that, there had just been so much conflict. So point number one, putting folks together to collaborate and find solutions that everyone can agree on so that we can sort of move forward. That's my favorite way to do things. I also loved that it sort of separated a larger corporation from smaller woodlands owners. And that bill in particular actually got folks really excited about protecting the environment. All of a sudden, we had local, folks who own smaller pieces of land who are really, really interested. I think the short answer to that is that it's collaborative, and it's about folks coming together and figuring out what they need to do to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. Dr. Mansfield, would you like me to repeat the question? As the current administration works to deregulate decades-old environmental protections, how will you ensure that our air, water, forest, and fish and wildlife will be protected from overdevelopment and bad practices?
Okay, well, I'm not gonna say anything about the thing, but what he's doing, I'm not gonna get into what he's doing, but is what that says is really not supposed to be, it's misleading. Okay, right now, the EPA has extended themselves beyond what the actual law authorizes them to do. Okay, I believe in clean water and clean air. I believe in good management. I believe in good stewardship of the property, the water, everything like that. But not do anything, don't let anybody use anything is, let nature do their course is not the answer, because nature will always go to chaos. That's what it will do. That's just the physical, fundamental second law of thermodynamics. It just goes to chaos. So what we need to do is have to help people do better management of their property, their water, and we need a better management of water, DEQ. Right now for the fishery, they have to put water that's cleaner than what we drink back into the water when they do fish. That's absolutely ridiculous. Okay, so anyway, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, what is your position on the war with Iran?
Well, if they didn't go in to take out what they have, because right now, I can't tell you things, it's classified, okay? But the point is, if we didn't do this, if the war was not done, they would continue killing people. Their own people, they've killed over 40,000 of them already this year, okay? And they would kill how many of our soldiers and how many of our people? The war is that they claim to have nuclear weapons. If they have nuclear weapons, we do not want them to have it, because they will use them. Not only on Israel, they will use them on the US. Okay, that is the threat that they're trying to address. Okay, you cannot let a nation like this that's willing to drop a nuke on anything and everything if they can get away with it. So that's really what started the war. Okay, is that they've told us that we have the weapons and we are going to use them. And what would you do? You would defend yourself, and that's what they're trying to do. I wish it would be over with. The gun, I really did. I mean, just give up and just quit. But they're not doing that.
Okay. Ms. Armitage.
Yes, I'm going to take a second to wrap up that last question, because I do care about clean air and clean water. I think we get there a whole lot faster when we work together. We come up with solutions, we move on. We come up with another solution, we move on. As far as the war in Iran, what are we doing? This is not a constitutional war. It is so incredibly bad for prices. People are already struggling with the cost of living. This has spiked the cost of just about everything. It's totally inhumane. We don't have congressional, it's nonsense. I'm completely opposed.
Thank you. Then we'll start with you. What is your position on single payer to healthcare?
I really support my priority is making sure that everybody has access to healthcare. I am not as concerned with how we do it. I think in theory, single payer sounds like a great idea, but I think there are just a whole lot of variables in the state of Oregon in particular that may make that more or less possible. I really like to see competition in various systems, especially healthcare. I like to see people being pushed toward efficiency. And I think the priority for me at this point is making sure that we have healthcare providers on the coast, that you can get to the doctor, that you have access. We're just not there right now. That's where we start, and then how we expand access is the next step for me.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, let's see here. With the state budget continuing. Do you want to talk about? No, would you like to talk about our doctor?
I really would like to talk about it right away.
So
I know
sorry.
a single payer system that I've known obviously I knew officers from England, I knew officers from various other countries. Some of these have single payer government thing. And I think it's difficult to get into a doctor's office, do something. In their country, it could take 3 to 4 months just to go see the doctor because there's so many people and so few doctors because they don't get paid for it. So no, I don't believe that. I believe there should be competition, just like she says. I pay my insurance. I have to pay GEHA. I have to pay Medicare, even though they don't really cover hardly anything. But yeah, I believe in multiple payer systems. Now, the question that came up one time in some of the other places I've been is that companies are buying out some of the local offices. Okay? So that is a question that has to be addressed, how that is handled.
Okay, thank you. I'm very sorry about that. I got on a roll.
I'll hold you.
Well, you're going to kick off this first one, so I won't forget you. With the state budget continuing to be challenged, how will you work to ensure that the basic needs of our communities will be met?
I think that's what we should be focusing on, okay, is the needs, not the wants yet. You gotta fix the needs first. And then if you have extra money, you address the wants. Okay, this bridge that they're talking about is costing more than the Wilson Bridge in DC, which is 6 lanes plus a bike trail, on both sides. And that bridge was humongous. I mean, it would lift this 100-foot platform like to straight up 6 lanes across. And your bridge is more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Biggest thing is they should be pulling money from the federal government also because they can get funds from the federal government to build that bridge just as well. They have to pay 20% of it. But that's what.
Thank you.
So I was born literally a month after Measure 5 passed. So this has been something that has really defined my entire experience growing up with school, with services. We have been having this conversation for so long. This is not just about this biennium. This is something I've been talking about for 15 years. And I'm too young to have been talking about that for 15 years. I think the first thing is trust and accountability. It's really tough to say, hey, let's fix our tax system when people don't understand where their tax dollars are going. They don't like the system. They don't see where their dollars are. And they especially don't see their dollars being spent on the North Coast. So I think we need to restore trust. I think we need to hold agencies accountable. I think we need to streamline our budgets. And then I think we need to, ultimately, my priority is making sure in a biennium like this that people are fed and well. And after that, I think we can talk to folks about,
Thank you.
expanding our budget.
Appreciate that. We've got a couple highway questions. We talked a little bit about it, but these are a little different nuance. I'm not sure which one to do. With gas prices continuing to go up possibly through November, which increases the prices of food, travel to employment, small businesses, will you support the gas tax to be lowered by half in 2027? That
is a really interesting proposal. So I really look forward to, continuing to talk about this issue. I will not be supporting the gas tax in May, but I really do encourage everybody to go out and make their voices heard. And here's why. I think this current iteration, it punishes folks who go to work, and a lot of those folks are going to work and driving 45 minutes for reasons they can't control, whether it's that they can't afford to live where they work, whether it's an affordable housing issue. Like, it's not necessarily your choice to have that kind of a commute. But also, I think the gas tax is one thing. It's actually the least bad part. I really have questions about the transit tax. Like, you all are paying the same rate on the transit tax as somebody in Portland, and you do not have the same services. I think we need to really review how the system works.
Thank you. Dr. Mansfield?
Dealing with the transit tax, I believe that most of it, almost 80–90% of it should go to the localities, and none of it should go to the state. Because you guys got to pay for emergency response, police enforcement, fix all the damages that are done by anybody that comes to visit. But yes, the transit lodging tax is different in every county, the amount it is. Okay. So, but you guys need to be able to spend it here, not to build a new building, but to take care of all the needs that are necessary to support you, as well as water systems, whatever, all these other things to do with. I've talked to a couple town managers and stuff like that, and they're saying that they don't get enough of the transit tax, and they don't have the ability to use it for what it needs to be done because it's been later. Okay, you need to be in control of it. Counties and the cities need to be in control of that. That's my opinion.
Thank you. This will be the last question before we move into wrap up. What changes would you make in Oregon's election process to make elections fair? Start with you, Dr. Mansfield.
Okay. Obviously, nobody that's, any state can allow anybody to vote who they want. Okay. But in the federal government, the Constitution specifically states that you have to be a U.S. citizen. So if you're going to vote in a federal election, you should be able to verify that you are a U.S. citizen to get a particular ballot to vote in the federal government for federal elections. That's my belief. How we do that? It's a good question. Okay. Because right now you can go online, register to vote, no proof, nothing, and you can get a ballot. So that's not good. So I don't know how it's changed. There are people who are not going to go for it. There's a lot of people pushing it to be in voting, in-person voting, which I did my entire life is in-person voting. So, but how can we secure this? Is the only sure way to do it is ensure that you're a citizen to vote in the federal election. State election, that's up to the state legislature. Okay, so.
Thank you.
So we're going to talk a lot this election about things we think that the state of Oregon could be doing better, but I actually think this is one of the best things we do as a state. I am a huge fan of vote by mail. You have to show the same ID at the DMV as you would if you were standing in line at a poll. Also, by the way, after Motor Voter was passed, because I've seen the election data, voter participation skyrocketed to the point where we can't even use old data anymore to predict how many people are going to come out. It was phenomenal. And that's the data that I rely on to decide, is the system working? It must be, because folks are using it. So that's number one. I think after that, we can talk about, county elections, offices in the rural areas. There is a huge discrepancy between who publishes voters' pamphlet statements and how many resources voters in the rural areas get. I really want to look at that and learn more about that. But vote by mail is one of the best things we do as a state. I'm going to fight for it.
Great. Thank you. Zeke, do you want to jump in? Zeke was not here when we did the initial introduction. So as you guys are thinking about your wrap up, your 1 minute wrap up, he's going to have 2.5 minutes, like you did at the front, to talk about Commissioner Banks, who had provided a statement. So I'll let Pat get ready for that.
All
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Zeke Connell. I am the campaign manager for Courtney Banks, who's running for State Senate District 16. Courtney wanted to be here tonight, but is currently in Washington, D.C. advocating on behalf of Clatsop County and the North Coast. That is Courtney is. Whether it's in Salem or in D.C., she shows up to fight for this community, and she asked me to share a few words with you all about why she is running and what she will bring to the Oregon Senate. A little background first. Courtney has lived in rural Northwest Oregon for almost 20 years. She and her husband Derek are raising their 3 kids on their family tree farm right outside of Napa. She is an educator by training, a public servant by choice. Courtney was the first elected and the Clatsop County Commissioner in 2020, beating out far left, out of touch progressive incumbent on the county commission. Courtney has consistently challenged state overreach, demanded accountability for how taxpayer dollars are spent, and fought to protect working class forests and natural resource jobs that support families across rural communities of this region. These jobs fund our schools and our public safety, and Courtney understands that because she lives it. Senate District 16 has had consistent, wise, and conservative leadership because of Republican Senator Suzanne Weber, and now Courtney is honored to have the senator's endorsement on these issues. I will quickly highlight her consistent, clear, and common sense positions. Courtney stands 100% opposed to Tina Kotek's $4.3 billion gas tax that will severely hurt our working communities. Courtney has always been a fierce defender of the Second Amendment and for the rights of unborn children and their parents. She has deep connections to natural resources industries and works in the area from forests to farming, fishing, and beyond. And Courtney has consistently advocated to cut red tape to increase the housing supply and reduce costs. Finally, I'll close by saying that Courtney has a number of key endorsements beyond the good Senator Weber. Local Republican Representative Darcy Edwards, Oregon Right to Life, the Oregon Coalition of Police and Sheriffs, the Associated Oregon Loggers, Oregon Business and Industry, and the Oregon Young Republicans. I work with Courtney every day on this campaign, and I will tell you that she is the real deal. She is not a career politician looking for the next step. She has always shown up for the people she serves. She is Northwest Oregon's fiercest advocate. If you have any questions about Courtney or her campaign, I'm happy to connect with you this afternoon, and I'd encourage you to visit CourtneyBangs.com to learn more. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Courtney.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Dr. Mansfield, and we'll close with Ms. Armitage.
Are we giving them a minute?
1 minute.
1 minute. Okay.
I haven't actually solicited any of the PACs or the unions for support because I'm not asking for their leadership to support me. I'm asking for the people to support me, not the unions and not the PAC leaders. I have education background too. I taught in grad school several different times. I call it baby physics. That's what we call it as engineers. But I also taught, statics, engineering statics. I also taught some other things in the lower class. I also taught graduate level classes at the University of California. But most of the time I'm an engineer. I solve problems. I get hired to solve problems because I look at the problem. I get the input from the various people that are concerned and associated to that problem and get them to work together to fix a problem. But I had to work with people that don't actually report to me, but they have to work for me. And that's very difficult to rein in a bunch of engineers who have different ideas to get them to come to a common solution and to be concerned about the unintended consequences that occur.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to wrap up by saying, my mom is a teacher. I grew up working class. So I know what it's like to have access to things like healthcare and opportunity, but my mom was also a single parent for a lot of that time. So I also know how isolating it can be to not have your basic needs met. I definitely went hungry. We struggled to make ends meet. We lost our home during the Great Recession. And I've had to check my bank account before buying groceries and filling prescriptions. I know what kinds of situations folks are in because I've been there. I've struggled through state systems and wondered what we are paying for. So I just want folks to know, regardless of what party, regardless of your backgrounds, I'm here to fight for you. I care about the North Coast. That's my priority. And if you'd like to talk for more than a minute, I actually will be in Tillamook next weekend, again, for the Home and Garden Show. I hope you stop by. We can get into it a little bit more, and thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you, and let's thank these candidates. Almost every question. Now we'll have the county commissioners, candidates come up.